Trump is the closest thing to God.
Trump is the closest thing to God, really?
Absolutely.
So you believe that Trump is picked by God?
I believe so. I believe that Trump is blessed by God. I believe that Trump has come from blessed parents. His parents worked for what they had. His parents made him, molded him to become the person that he is.
But so Trump is selling Bibles for $60.
Okay.
Is that he's profiting off of selling Bibles? Is that a godly thing to do?
Is it a godly thing for the Democrats to be okay with killing their babies? Is that okay?
I guess you answered my question with another question.
Okay.
Just answer this question. Is it a godly thing to do for Trump to be?
Absolutely. It's a business. He's a businessman. That's what this country needs. What do we need? What are churches doing? When you go to church, don't they ask you for $1? Don't they ask you to do this and that? Churches are businesses. This whole country's a business.
Say, I'm sorry. I voted for him. I thought he was going to help folks like me. I really did. Now my SNAP's gone, my Medicaid's gone. They cut off my heat and help last week. I don't know how I'm supposed to buy groceries next month or keep the lights on. I ain't got no.
Why is it that every time a Trump supporter hears anything crazy about Trump, any of the things he's done, any of the things he's said, any of the things that he's currently doing that are disturbing, they're like, oh, fake news, like, oh.
What I don't understand is how in the fuck do you feel like you relate to a billionaire who has never known struggle his entire fucking life? I will say this, he talks a good one. And if you're in his base, you're a core, let's say you're going to the rallies or whatever, you watch him on TV, you hear him talking this shit. There's part of me that understands like, all right, he's somehow still got them because he's brainwashing them into thinking that something great is going to happen. Nothing's happening. Nothing is happening. When I start talking about Trump, I get too flustered in my head. The shit that I want to say, there's too many things I want to say at once. Watching him play to his base that thinks that he cares about them, and it's actually the people that he cares about the fucking least.
I'm done. You want to talk about regretting your vote?
I never thought I'd say that, but I regret my vote. I voted for Trump.
I voted for Trump, and I regret it now.
As a Hispanic, I voted for Donald J. Trump. Dude, I regret it so much, man.
I am regretting my vote for Donald Trump.
I voted for Donald Trump, and now I regret it.
A lot of people who were like me voted for Trump and have to account for that.
I regret voting for Trump.
So deeply regret my vote for Donald Trump.
I regret voting for Trump.
I was a dumbass, voted for Trump. It was the worst decision I ever made.
I've seen the light, and I got out of MAGA. A lot of us there have seen the light. We have deep regrets.
I feel guilty because I voted for Trump twice. I feel very guilty because I feel responsible. That's why he's still running.
I was with Trump for 9 straight years. I'm disappointed. I'm very disappointed in Trump right now.
I see a lot of Trump supporters, people that voted for Trump, now kind of changing the tune, right? In which I'm thankful that you guys see how wrong certain things are. But in the same manner, I see a lot of posts saying, this is not what I voted for. Yes, it is. This is exactly what you voted for.
If you voted for that orange man in the White House, and now you're saying, this isn't what I voted for, this isn't what I voted for. Baby, yes it is. He's doing exactly what he said he would do, in the exact way he said he would do it. And we told you, we pled with you, we begged you not to do this. You said we were fear-mongering, you said we were extremists, you said we were crazy, that we were the radical left. And now you're crying in your soup saying, I didn't think it would be this bad. I didn't vote for this. Yes, you did. All of this you're seeing, all the havoc that's being wreaked, all the horror that's being rained down on the American people, it's exactly what you voted for.
Somebody to tell me they're lying and right now because of what the do you mean that I'm not going to get my SNAP benefits? What the do you mean?
We are possibly going to lose our farm if NRCS doesn't hold up their contract with us on the EQIP program. Because of the executive orders, there's a pause or a freeze on the funding, and they're not able to pay out on the stuff that we completed or anything going forward.
beyond betrayed. They used us during the campaign. The elected officials from the Republican Party, they actually told us that it was not going to touch the documented people.
I mean, you're an educator. You didn't vote for Trump eliminating federal funds.
No, I did not vote for that. I do not think that's what the voters want. If we have federal cuts, then that's going to mean bigger classroom sizes. I would lose teachers, first and foremost. It's devastating.
So family, for years, the MAGA movement has built on powerful messaging, emotional appeals, and even a promise that a return to Trump-era leadership will restore prosperity, protect everyday Americans, and even make life easier for working families. And so here comes the rhetoric, which is very strong. The crowds were energized, and the message was simple: vote for this movement and things will get better. But now, family, in many corners of the country, a very different tone is beginning to emerge. Some of the same voters who once cheered the loudest are now expressing anger. They're now expressing confusion and even betrayal. And the phrase being repeated more and more frequently is striking in its simplicity. This is not what we voted for. And what makes this moment particularly fascinating is how quickly perception can change when policy stops being abstract and starts affecting everyday life. Now, it's easy to support sweeping political ideas when the consequences feel distant, but when healthcare costs rise, when local hospitals struggle, when food assistance programs shrink, and even when economic pressure begins to squeeze households, the impact becomes impossible to really ignore. And suddenly the conversation shifts from ideology to survival, and from slogans to lived experience. And even many of these voters generally believed that the policies that they supported would target someone else, somewhere else. And so the idea was that government cuts would eliminate waste or even punish groups that were told were undeserving, while their own communities will somehow remain protected. But government programs do not operate on political identity, family. When funding disappears, it affects them, and the effects ripple outward indiscriminately. And rural communities feel it, seniors feel it, working families feel it, and that's where the tension begins to grow. Because when expectations collide with reality, people naturally start asking questions. Did we misunderstand the policies? Were we misled about the consequences? Or were the promises simply never realistic to begin with? And this is where politics becomes less about loyalty and more about accountability. Supporters who were once defended every decision are now demanding explanations. Some are calling into radio shows, posting online, and speaking to local reporters, saying they feel blindsided by the outcomes. And they're saying that they expected protection, not hardship. They expected economic relief, not increased pressure. And they expected leadership that prioritized their needs. And what's important to understand is that this frustration is not just about one policy or one decision, family. It's about a growing realization that campaign messaging and governing reality can be very different things. And political movements often thrive on optimism and promises, but governing requires choices, trade-offs, and even policies that inevitably affect real people in complicated ways. And the anger we are seeing now reflects that collision between expectation and reality. And when voters say this is not what we voted for, they are revealing something deeper about how political narratives shape public perception. And people vote based on the information they believe in, the promises that they trust, and even the vision of the future they were sold to. But when that vision fails to materialize, family, disappointment can quickly turn into outrage. The bigger question now is what happens next? Will this frustration lead to reflection and a reevaluation of political choices, or will it simply fuel another cycle of blame and division? Because American politics has a long history of redirecting anger toward new targets rather than confronting the root causes of the problem. And in many ways, family, this moment represents a crossroads. Voters are confronting the difference between campaign rhetoric and even political outcomes, between emotional loyalty and tangible results. And while the phrase "this is not what we voted for" may sound like a complaint, it's actually a window into a much larger conversation about political accountability in modern America. And when citizens begin to question the leaders they once trusted, it signals that the political narrative is shifting. Whether that shift leads to deeper understanding or simply a new round of political messaging remaining to be seen. But one thing is certain, family, when reality enters the conversation, it tends to change everything.